Hi, I'm Teresa from Phoenix Gate Crafts, and this is Bailey, my assistant. And today we're here to talk about, is it worth it to sell your hand-stitched goods? Short answer, maybe, most likely not. Depends on the circumstance and what you're making, and honestly how much time it takes. So the big question with the whole is it worth it thing is, how much does it actually cost to make the item, and how much more of it can you make back? And the big question with hand-stitched items isn't so much the cost of materials, because for the most part that is relatively low, like compared to candle making or melt and pour soap making, where cost of materials are a little bit higher, but they don't take nearly as much time. If you want a bigger cost breakdown, you could always look at my other channel, Phoenix Gate Soaps, where I actually have a whole series on making your crafty business. It is a little bit more candle and soap focused, but it can totally apply to hand-stitched items as well. I have a whole playlist there that I'm working on, and I'll put links in the description box down below. The first thing we need to discuss is how pricing works. What factors go into pricing an item? And obviously, let's start with the basic formula, which is just a starting point, friendly reminder. She's so cute. The basic formula for pricing your items is cost of goods sold times 3 or 4. Now, what is cost of goods? That is materials. Some people, like the classic way of doing this includes time, but we're going to be talking about time separately, especially since time, like there is the time used to make the item, but if you're running a business, there's also time that you use for marketing and everything. So I personally see time as a fixed cost, because whether you're making items or whether you're doing other stuff, your time is kind of a finite resource, right? So cost of time, I feel, doesn't include in cost of goods. It's a matter of opinion, and most accountancy professionals actually tell you that the time for making the item is part of the cost of the good itself. But we'll talk about it later, because it gets more tricky when you have a much more time laborious product. But cost of goods is definitely for us yarn, floss, beads, anything else that actually winds up in the project. So for example, if you're making a dishcloth that you're going to sell, and you use half a ball of Knit Picks Dishy yarn, you take the cost of the full ball at full price. It doesn't matter if you actually got it on discount or sale or anything like that, because you cannot guarantee you're always going to get it at that discount or sale. So you take the full price of that ball of yarn, and then because you only use half, you divide by 2 or multiply by 1/2. Doesn't matter which way you want to do it. And that is your cost of materials, especially if that is all the materials you're using for that project. And then the reason why we're multiplying by 3 or 4 is because now we're including fixed costs like time and the fact that we already purchased our needles, and if we need stitch markers or anything like that, renting of the space that we stitch in, internet, electricity for the lights that we need in the evening, and all that kind of stuff. So that also includes the concept of a little bit of profit. So if you're doing a times 4 multiplier, you know you've got your times 1, which is the actual cost of materials, then the times 2 portion, which is fixed costs, and then the other times 3 or times 4 is theoretically profit. And this really works well with small projects like dishcloths, washcloths, scrubby bags, little things. Maybe hats work pretty well with this. It's even better if it's something like crochet that goes a little bit faster than knit. Things get a little bit more complicated when we actually do factor in time. Now, the technically correct way to set a price, the official way, is cost of materials, cost of time, a portion of your fixed costs, plus the amount that you want to make as profit. I do put quotes around profit because you technically do not make profit until all the money you have spent is covered by the money you make, and you make more than the total amount you spend for running your business, including materials and all the fixed costs and everything. If we actually take time separately from cost of goods like we do in this model, knitting and crochet definitely do not become worth it, especially when you apply minimum wage. Now, I live in California, so minimum wage here, I believe right now is $15.50 an hour. I'm going to round that down to $15 so I can do math in my head. But please understand that the amounts that I'm giving here are just examples, and minimum wage is different in different places, and it is subject to change over time because it theoretically should. Anyway, if you decide to pay yourself minimum wage, my market bag, the pattern for which is also found in my Etsy shop. I will also place this in a link in the description box. But this takes me about 7 hours to complete. So if I were to make this for somebody, charging $15 an hour. So let's count off, shall we? 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, 105. That's going to be $105 on time alone. And it's even more if I count the 50 cents. That is a lot of money. Nobody in their right mind is going to buy a market bag that admittedly is very stretchy and very sturdy. They're not paying over $100 for this thing. There is a supply and demand curve. I think I put this in a different video at one point, but as the price for something goes up, supply increases, and as the price goes up, demand decreases. And where supply meets demand is where the price should be set. That's why the multiplier of 3 times or 4 times the cost of goods is just a starting point. You always need to see what the market would allow and pick a pricing strategy based on what other people are selling their items for. And you know, I realize that California has very high minimum wage. If we take more the national minimum wage, which I don't know what that is, it's like $7.50 or something. Let's call it $8 because that's easier for me. So 7 times 8, 5, 6, 7, 8, 56 is 7 times 8. That's still $56. That's a lot. Not even counting the fact that you require like 3 or 4 balls of yarn for this project. And people are not likely to buy that, especially since a lot of time complete fabric tote bags are free and you can get them at a whole bunch of like festivals and stuff for free, or buy them for just a few bucks at your local grocery store. There definitely comes a point when factoring in time where time doesn't pay for itself. You're never going to likely get what you're worth when it comes to charging for your time. And this is a never say never situation. There are a couple people out there, I'm sure, who are willing to pay $100 something for a very well-made bag that is going to last them a very long time. But for the most part, you know, I did try to sell that market bag for a little while. I charged $25 to $35 for it. It really wasn't worth the time I spent. This is very common with blankets. A lot of people who hand make blankets, you know, if you think in terms of the yarn, every blanket I've made that was like big enough to put on a bed cost me around $100 to $150 in yarn. Simply doubling that, $150 times 2 is $300. And that doesn't even factor in the fact that it takes me a month or two to crochet, not even knit. Knit takes me like 3 times more time than it takes to crochet. So this is all just crochet timelines. Knitting's longer because knitting is slower. And if I factor in the time for that, for crocheting a blanket would cost over $1,000. And especially if you factor into the fact that most of us buy blankets at places like Walmart, Target, Macy's. If you're at Walmart or Target, you might spend about $100-150 on a blanket. If you go to Macy's, you might be paying more. But $300 is beyond most people's ranges. And then you go to, say, Etsy and type in blanket, and you see a lot of people selling crocheted blankets for like $40 or $50, and you're like, how are they doing it? They're just trying to get that thing to sell. And I know what some people are going to say. Well, the people who buy blankets at Walmart, Target, or Macy's are like not my target demographic. It is direct competition because they're selling the same thing you are. So yes, they are your competition, because anything that takes sales away from you is competition. Not everybody who purchases from Walmart is your target demographic, but some are. Walmart has actually a wide range of people and a wide range of financial capability purchasing stuff there. But there is a different tactic you can take. If it's something that you don't actually care if you make your money back, if you don't care about making actual profit and making a business run, that actually frees you up to sell at whatever price you want that will get the item to move. And here's another part of the debate you'll find. A lot of people who are trying to make a business run and are trying to price at a price that will sell will tell you that this is ruining their business because it's additional competition that is stealing some of their market with the prices. So anybody can sell at any price they want. There are different people on Etsy selling for different reasons. There really isn't a right answer here. One thing additional for cross-stitch sellers, people who are selling finished cross stitches, because out of all of my crafts right now, cross stitch is my slowest. This one, this Peep Show one right here, that took me, no joke, 4 evenings, and it is not very big in terms of actual size, right? But it took a lot of time. There's an additional issue with this in that I don't own that image. I could not sell this finished piece. Now, in terms of copyright, for those of us who knit and crochet, as long as we're not selling the pattern we're using, we can make anything off of a pattern that we got anywhere and we can sell it. We do not have to credit the designer. We do not have to pay the designer anything in the United States. The laws are a little different in different places. Now, is that ethical? No, it is not ethical. But we don't have to. It is not a requirement. This is actually very old law. There is no arguments to be made here. But I don't own that image. I did not create this image. I cannot sell this because I do not own that image. The person who did design this is brilliant, and I think she is hilarious. And I will put her name right here, and I will put a link to her Etsy shop where I got that. I don't own that image. When you are selling images, pictures, that's when copyright also gets involved. And there is an additional thing you need to pay in order to have permission to sell that, which is a licensing fee. So a lot of things like Disney, Marvel, DC, DreamWorks, WB, HBO, Showtime, lyrics to songs, the images of famous people, like not just their characters, but like Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans or Chris Pines or Chris Hemsworth or all the Chris's really. Any person whose image you don't have permission to use, you can't sell. So just be aware that you'd have to actually, in order to not get a cease and desist, and then perhaps going to court if you don't cease and desist, the way around that is to get permission from the person who does own the copyright. And many of those companies, especially if they're larger, will have a licensing fee you have to pay. And that often gets eaten into the price you set the item at. So just be aware, there is that kind of copyright thing in addition for a lot of things with images. Yeah, business can cost a lot. That whole it takes money to make money thing, that's legit. And in more ways than many of us think. And ultimately, this is why prices go up, because the cost of those things goes up. Anyway, I hope you found this helpful. I know I didn't give you any definitive answer because this is something you have to decide for yourself if this will work out for you. But I hope now that you have more things to think about and factor in. I also want to let you know I have yet another channel that I am starting. It is Phoenix Gate Tutoring. I know I'm so clever with these names. But my main job, my main source of actual income is as a tutor. And Phoenix Gate Tutoring is all about the things a parent should know and understand about the educational system and how to actually help their own kid before they need tutoring. So that way they can help their child the best that they can, and determining that place where, no, I really can't do this, I do need a tutor. So please check that out. Again, links in description and maybe in the end title card if I can figure out how to do that. So anyway, happy crafting. Bye.